Hey y'all, I'm Natasha, founder of Never Lunch on a Friday. If you are newly turning in, this is where we talk about trauma. This is where we talk about healing, about somatic healing to help you as a female founder get unstuck. And I was on a call this morning with a bunch of my colleagues, and one of the women was talking about how she continues to make the same choice over and over, this destructive choice. And we were talking about how the choices that we make are so preconditioned. They're things that we learned when we were little kids. They were behaviors and survival responses that we adapted. And one of the things that you learn when you're learning about trauma is that the life that you are now, the person that you are, is a result of all your survival adaptations. And if you think about that, that's so interesting, right? Like who you are, why you do what you do, in a large part is due to what you had to do growing up to be able to survive your environment. And that might sound crazy, and it can be good or bad, right? But we are survival adaptations, and we make these choices subconsciously. And so what we talk about on this channel, on this podcast, is how do we heal those trauma, those trauma edges that keep us stuck? Because if you think about our comfort zones, right? Like you can only expand to the extent your nervous system lets you grow, right? So if your comfort zone is here and you want to be here, there's a lot of comfort zone that needs to be expanded. So you feel comfortable in a bigger bubble, right? In a bigger circle. And so how do you break through those edges without going out and in and out and in? Like, how do you heal? How do you let those go? How do you cut those ropes, for example, that are holding you in so you can expand? And that's what I love to talk about. I've been a female founder. I've been an entrepreneur my entire career. I have had multiple trauma things happen, all the typical from divorce to chronic pain to cancer to a special needs daughter to bad economies to near bankruptcies, you name it. Like I've probably had it happen. And through all that time, I've learned, okay, that we have to learn how to regulate ourselves. We have to learn how to take care of us to be able to get through it, right? We need to like not necessarily shut it down unless you feel like that's the right thing to do. But okay, as you're moving towards your goal and you start feeling like scared, panic, terror, how do we do that? How do we get through that? And today I want to kind of help us take a step back where as women, as female founders, if you've been in the entrepreneur world for any length of time, you have probably been around the culture of no excuses. You got to push through the discipline. You do it if you feel like it. You do it if you don't feel like it kind of vibe, right? And I have lived that my entire career. I did 8 years working in a business that was boiler room cold calling, cold call sales. Like you show up, play hurt. I went back to work 3 or 4 days after my son was born by a C-section. It was just like no pity. You're like, go, like you go back to work and you show up. And I have been in environments and I have as an athlete, there's been times in my athletic career where I trained on a torn hamstring, like a hamstring tendon that had torn. And I trained on it for a long time and for years. And then it took me years to heal it. And we live in these cultures where like no pain, no gain, right? Do it hurt, play hurt, do it hard. And I'm all for those things. You have to be brave. You have to be strong. You have to show up sometimes when you don't feel like it. But that's not what I want to talk about right now. I want to speak to if you're a woman and you just constantly feel trapped and overwhelmed and just buried by the to-do list that you have to do when you're not feeling like it because of so many other demands on your life, we're going to talk about that today. Because I'll just again, as I do this podcast, I always talk about my experiences, right? I'll just speak from my perspective and apply it to your situation, right? I'm not in any way trying to like talk just about me. That's not the point, but I can just use me as a reference, right? So when I had little kids, my kids are big now. My oldest is 19. I have 19, 17, 16. I have 3 kids. When they were little, I had 3 under the age of 3. And there was a 7-year period where I did not sleep through the night. I was just wrecked. I had pregnant and then I had insomnia when I was pregnant. And then I had 3 babies. And then after having babies, my body couldn't sleep. And I was just wrecked. I could not sleep. My life was a train wreck. I was depressed. I had postpartum. I was thinking about like, was taking sleeping pills. There were so many times I thought about taking all of them and just putting an end to it. And I had marriage trouble. And I just was so like all these chronic pain and migraines and just like all these different things, at the same time. And I remember all the way through that experience, getting up, going to work, getting the job done, doing my calls, doing the stuff, doing my workout, and just wasted, depressed, wasted. But that was how my scoring system worked. If I did my thing, if I checked my boxes, did my calls, and if I did it, hurt, exhausted, migraines, bleeding, babies crying, that was like a victory. That was a victory. And I carried that attitude with me all the way through until I was probably 2 years ago, until I was probably about 42. This like hurt. I remember after my divorce, I didn't even take a day off. I was just like, no, back to work and focus. And don't get me wrong, it can be a good distraction to be busy and be doing things. But now, having been through that way of living and knowing the wreckage it causes in your life and the lack of peace, the lack of presence, the kind of parent that you become when you're just wired and fried all the time, the kind of partner you are when you're just like going through the motions and just doing what you have to do, there is space to breathe. There is space for your pain. And like, let's just give an example. So last night, one of my dogs, who always sleeps in our room, one of my dogs had a tummy ache, and I heard all night her stomach was like, rah, rah, rah. And I'm trying to get her to go up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom. She comes back in and she's out and she's in and she's out. And so technically speaking, I've been up since 1 o'clock in the morning. And I don't have little kids anymore, but now I've got this dog, right? And the dog like sometimes scratches and she like shakes in the middle of the night and it wakes me up. And so I'm kind of like having a baby, right? So I've been up since 1 o'clock, couldn't go back to sleep. I was just awake. And before I would have been like, okay, I've got 4 calls today. My gosh, I got all this stuff. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And instead now I woke up and I was like, I'm tired. I'm not in the best mood. What can I move off my schedule today? And what do I need to add? So what can I move? So I looked at my schedule and I was like, okay, can I move this meeting until tomorrow? Can I move this meeting until Friday? Can I just not do this today? Can I take this off my list and do this on Wednesday? And I just started shuffling my day around until it felt in a rhythm that I'm like, okay, I can do that today. And then I was like, okay, I can feel, it feels better. I have less, I looked at, it was my daughter's birthday this weekend. And so the house is a total disaster zone, right? And so I'm looking around, my daughter turned 16 and I'm like, there's balloons everywhere. And there's like, I don't know, whatever on the floor. And there's like food in the counter. And I'm like feeling very overwhelmed by that. And I was, okay, can I take out the garbage today? Can that be my only thing today? And my partner can do dishes tonight and my daughter can vacuum tomorrow. And how do I not take all this on? Because before I would have done all of it. I would have been like, okay, I need to wake up early. I need to clean. I need to do all the things. And now it's like, no, okay, how about not? How about I don't? And then while I'm taking things off my list, while I'm feeling tired, while I'm feeling like not at my best, okay, what do I need to add? What do I need to add that would feel restorative and centering and help me feel better about having not slept or being stressed or whatever it is? And it's not saying that we don't do our thing, but it's like, can we do it on those hard days? Can we do it in a rhythm that works better? Okay, so this morning I was thinking, I'm removing the things and I was like, okay, what do I need to add? Do I need to add taking the dogs for a walk? Instead of just sort of at a trail by my house, could I take them to this like beach where they can run and they can play and I don't have to hold their leashes and they can just have a good time and I can just sort of sit and bring a book and sit and just let them run? I'm like, that feels better than walking them on their leashes down the trail, right? And I was like, okay, so what else can I add? Okay, can I add taking a little bit longer on my lunch break? Can I add, hey, I'm going to have 2 cups of coffee today instead of 1 cup of coffee today? And maybe I put a little bit of extra sugar in that coffee today. And you just make these little pivots to be in a place where you're like, okay, you know what? I am going to honor where I am. And one of the things I say all the time, and I just think it's so brilliant, is like, some days we have 100%, and so we give 100%. Some days we have 20%. And so when we give that 20%, that's our 100% for the day. 20% is our 100%. And what I always used to do, and it's no wonder I got migraines and chronic pain. It's no wonder insomnia or anxiety, like it's so obvious now, right? Looking back on it. But it's like, okay, so if I only had 20%, or if I only had 5%, because I had not slept in years, I would still muscle to give 100%. No ball could drop. Kids, my ex-husband, our business, my health, my fitness, my all the things, and my household and the cooking and all these things. And I was like, and I look back on it now, and sometimes I look at pictures of that season, and I was in great shape. I was in absolutely great shape. I was like, probably, I don't know, 15 pounds lighter than I am right now. I was like in phenomenal shape. And I look at it and I look at that body and I think, damn, that looked really good. I'd had 3 kids. I was 6-pack. I was lean. I was like, looking really good. But I think about it, I'm like, but the price I paid for that, doing workouts when I could have fallen over because I was so tired. What damage did I do to my psyche, to my body? Like, I didn't rest. It was just this like adrenaline, sympathetic nervous system overdrive all the time. And I think as entrepreneurs, we somehow have learned to equate that with the definition of an entrepreneur. Someone who drives hard, doesn't sleep, doesn't play, like can play hurt, can play through the pain, you know? And I think what people forget to talk about is when you play through the pain, when you play when you're injured, it's going to get worse. It's going to get so much worse. If I had done all the calls that I had scheduled for today, I would have been disorganized. I would have been kind of lethargic. I would have been like not my best. I'm like, can we just do this tomorrow? And then, tonight I can plan it better. The dog can sleep outside or sleep in the living room. I can make a game plan. Okay, I'm going to sleep better tonight so I can wake up tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, I can do my 6 calls today. And we try to play on our broken leg. We have a migraine and we still go to work and we're just like pushing through. And it's like, I remember one time I used to get these sometimes I still get them, but I used to get really bad migraines. And I remember the doctors would give me medication and I would take the medication and the migraine would help. And I remember telling the doctor, like, I don't want to take the medication. I want to just let it go. And she's like, there's a theory. I'm not a doctor, so please keep this in mind. I'm not a doctor, but the theory is that by not treating the migraine and not somehow soothing your brain, the migraine itself does damage to your brain. And I was like, huh. And I don't know if that's true or not. So if you know, please drop a comment. But I remember thinking that was very helpful to me. So it's like, if I can stop the migraine, let's just say in the morning of day 1, for example, instead of letting it run for three days, I'm saving my brain 2.5 days of wear and tear instead of trying to be a hero and muscle through the migraine with no pain medication, right? And I'm currently looking into alternative sources of pain medication for migraines. That's something on my list. But it's the same idea. You don't sleep, you have a new baby, you're going through a financial situation, you're going through a relationship situation, you're going through a health situation. You can't show up the same. And to think you can is very low level entrepreneurial conditioning. And I'll share another story. Last year, I finished breast cancer treatment and I finished in April of 2025. And I was going through chemo. I did 8 rounds of chemo. Every other week of chemo, I was on my ass. I was in bed watching Food Channel all day long. I had never watched Who Can Beat Bobby Flay or whatever it is, Beat Bobby Flay. I'd never watched a show in my life. I watched it all day long for like weeks. And I was just so brain dead. I couldn't function and I just couldn't get up. All I could eat was ice cream. I just had no interest. I was depressed. I couldn't drive. I was just chemo, right? It's not a good time. And to think the person I would have been before would have been like, get up, don't be a baby. I remember before when I was diagnosed back in 2024, I made this list of okay, things I can do during chemo. Could I read? I made this to-do list of things that I was going to do to muscle through the chemo. But then after surgery, after all of that, I realized I'm like, no, I need to give myself some time. My 100% is 20% right now. But how we cover that differential of the 20 to the 100, let's say that 80%. In my opinion, we cover through the team that we build around us. And some people ask me, they're like, how does team building work with trauma healing? Like, how does that go together? And in my opinion, it is 100% together. Because if you're doing everything, if you only have your 20%, you have to muscle through to that 100% because you're the only one. But what about if you have a team, an assistant, an operations manager, a marketing person, a financial person? What if you have people around you? And I'm not saying all those people, but what if you have like a few of them or one of them who can cover? So you can wake up and you're like, look, migraine, let's say pick migraines, right? I'm in a lot of pain. I'm not going to make it to the call today. Can you please reschedule my day? Can you please do this? Can you please move? Like, and you're like, okay, I can now take my 20%. I can go have a bath. I can go like rub my head. I can put some ice. I can relax. And maybe later I can come back to work, but maybe not, right? Maybe not. And this is where the team building comes in, is that as founders, there will be moments where you do not have 100%, whether because you want to or you don't. Maybe you want to cut off early and go to your son's game of some sort. Well, maybe you want to cut off early because there was your kid, his nose is bleeding at school and you got to go pick them up and you got to change your day around. Yeah. Okay. What do? You have to have a team. And this is something this I'm so passionate about. It's like trauma healing, letting this go, learning how to think, learning how to function as a regulated founder, as someone who's not constantly in this hunt, this alpha sympathetic nervous system aggressor position. So many of us are as entrepreneurs, but those of us who can like get the job done, a little more peace, a little more grace, productivity does not have to drop. We can just drop the crazy. How do you do that? How do you still get it done? You have other people around you, whether it's your home team, nannies, housekeeper, partner, other kids, food delivery services, like Uber to drive your kids around if you can't do it, whatever, or work. We have a support team and you cannot do it by yourself. So if you're trying to live up to this ideal in your mind, and I was me for decades, I'm the person who's like superhuman. I am the person who I don't need to have feelings. It doesn't matter. Play hard, play hurt. And that was my motto. I don't even know how many days I came to work when I was like, should have been in the hospital, just the amount of pain I was in from this chronic issue I had before. And I was just like, this Viking mode all the time. And it was seriously damaging to me, the people around me, to my health, to my psyche. So I'm going to propose a different idea. When you have 100%, you give 100%. When you don't, you don't. And that's okay. And I hear thought leaders say all the time, it's about the discipline and you can't wait to be motivated. I'm not talking about being motivated. I'm talking about you physiologically do not have it and you fight through it and you do it anyway. I am giving you permission to let that go. I'm not saying you don't feel like it because you're bored. That's very different. I'm talking about you've been up all night long with a crying baby and you do not have it. You're in tears. You're depressed. Okay, maybe that day you need to make some changes and then do it the next day, right? Maybe you need some help. It's okay. You're a human being. This is what I've had to learn for myself. This whole superhuman concept, it's so hurtful. And I thought I was just such a superstar. I was like, look at me. Look how tough I am. I haven't slept. I have 3 kids and I can go to work. It's like, the fuck is that? Okay, so much pride, so much arrogance, so much denial of me, of what my body needed, what my body was screaming for, and I'm just ignoring all of it. How about this? Take the day, take the morning, show up, do your 20%, rest, recover, reset, take care of yourself, get back in your groove, handle what you need to handle, and then come back. We're not saying quit. I'm not saying muscle. I'm just saying take a little break. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to be superhuman. You can get it all done. You just need other people around you. You need some help. So I would love your comments. As always, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you struggle with this? Do you struggle with this idea of letting it down and putting it down for the next day, or thinking you always have to be at your 100%, even if you're just like falling to pieces? What about the alternative idea? What do you think about that? As always, if the team building piece is something that interests you, click the link in the show notes, checking out our team building course we got coming up. And as always, can't wait to hear from you. We'll talk to you soon.